Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 119 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host still. And with me, as you know, most of the time, there are very few misses here, is the captain. What I want to call you today. You're not Captain Charisma today. You're something else entirely. You're like Eeyore on coke. Anyway, Darick
sure.
Oswald. Okay, fine. Charmer, did you do anything in Flesh and Blood this week?
First of all, I might not be Captain Charisma, but I am the Rear Admiral of Riz.
I don't know what to do with that, though. Like, do I feel like you have the Riz? Yeah.
First of all,
yeah.
I definitely have the Riz, but I am also an Admiral of the Rear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, I guess.
Yeah. Did I do anything in Flesh and Blood? I did pretty much what I do all of the time, actually, which is I
nothing.
wake up every morning and decide that I am quitting the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then I usually don't do it. But this week it's been more difficult. I say that I wake up every day and I want to quit all of the things that I love. But this week the anhedonia has been very strong.
Oh, there's a word.
Last weekend I had a blast playing Star Wars, and this week I was like, I don't even know if I want to play Star Wars at all. I might just quit. I don't know. So we're just kind of like riding the wave, and we know that it'll smooth out eventually. But no, I didn't do anything this week for anything. I didn't play Flesh and Blood. I didn't play Star Wars. I had events that I could have went to for both, and I didn't. I haven't even opened Star Wars for that launch. Yeah, like I just that's where I'm at. But I got my Black Spire Batu mug here, so
it's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I kind of want to dive into that a little bit because I also did nothing in Flesh and Blood this week. I wanted to play one more RTN to see if I could get across the finish line in one of them, but the only one within a 4-hour drive of me was sold out. It's a little frustrating still, and I don't know if this is critical or not, or if it's just an observation. It's frustrating to me that they have RTNs where they have stores that are really stretching their boundaries to get 30 players in the building, when there are stores that can fit a couple hundred that don't have RTNs.
Yeah. It's I think it's one of those things that is very difficult for LSS to get right, because on the one hand you want to give other stores shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because one, that's potentially how you grow those scenes, but also you kind of want to be seen as supporting stores of all shapes and sizes. But on the other hand, in order to do that, I don't think you need to take away. Like, I understand that there is a certain number of events that you want to run, but it does also then feel bad when you are a larger store or a bigger supporter or something with more space. I mean, there is that other part of the equation as well. Like, I find it very funny that like Lorcana, that doesn't really have a real competitive scene. Like, yes, I know there are events if you're listening. I'm not like completely oblivious, but you don't have a real competitive scene. Like, if you think that, then you're just wrong. I'm sorry. But they made stores like take video walkthroughs and send pictures and whatever just to run their fucking weeklies. And then LSS, like, yes, they do ask for stuff. They ask for photos of like winners and competitors, and they do their best to compile things. But I think that the difference, though, is like one of those places was very much like, we're going to require you to like even like sniff our game to send us your fucking birth certificate. And then LSS is like, hey, we would like to support you. Please send us stuff. And it's so weird because like LSS could benefit from knowing more. And again, part of it is they are halfway across the world. Yes, they've come over. Yes, I think they have a much better idea of the size and scale of things here in America now that they are many years in. I don't want to make them sound like they are either willfully ignorant or just like they're not capable of learning. They are absolutely getting better. Absolutely. Right. This is not that kind of a comment. And I am not going to, insult their intelligence. But I will say that, again, it's just harder to understand the logistics of those things. Like, even if you are here, if you had a presence in the United States, it can still be very difficult to understand the difference between like the Toronto scene and the Chicago scene and the Iowa scene and the California scene, because all of those are still going to be wildly different, even if you're here in the States. I'm just saying that you also then don't have a base of operations here in the States.
No, right.
You're halfway across the world. So getting that right is difficult. So yeah, I fully understand the frustration. I think that they are doing the best that they can. And if I'm being entirely honest, other than just running more events, like scaling up the number of participants you want for something like a Nats, I don't know how you get around that. Now, it also is entirely possible that for nationals, they very specifically want to cap certain numbers. I would personally like to see them for the pro events like pro quests just run more events. I think that if you're just talking about a pro tour events, just having more people qualified isn't that big of a deal to me. Maybe it is to them because of like gold foil numbers and whatever. Again, I don't know the back end, but that's really what it comes down to, is like they have X number of events that they want to run, and they also want to give different stores different shots, and that's difficult. It's also difficult to get a pulse for how popular your game is in certain areas. This is something, the stats side of me, I know I'm just talking fucking
go nuts.
Deal with the mania.
Go off, King.
That's whatever. So the data guy in me, right? So again, my day job, I run a team that does like data analytics and governance for a pretty large organization, the Treasury Department for the state of Michigan. I think about data and how LSS could use it, and I understand some of their wants and desires. And so this is an interesting bit, especially with them being halfway across the world, is you have a lot of ways that you can measure how well your game is doing. Obviously, products are selling well for them. They've had more attendance at events. They can track those things via GEM. All of the signs are pointing to things being good for them, and I'm very happy about that. But the other side of it is you want to know how well it's doing in different regions and what you can do to potentially grow in regions you're not doing well. And part of that is paying attention to, hey, if I put a pro quest in a place that people don't normally go to, does that mean people drive to that event, right? Like they're going to know, for example, where I normally play, and they're going to then know if I go to something that's 50 miles away or 100 miles away, right? That gives them info. And the only way that you can get that kind of info is just by doing it. Like, that's the reality. Like, yeah, we can all say like, hey, if they just ask, sure. But like a lot of people just don't pay attention to surveys, or they don't answer honestly, or maybe if I answer for this event, that's upcoming, but then like 6 months from now, my situation changes. Like, the reality is the best way to know is to just do it and then see the data. And so I do think that sometimes we think about event planning solely from the, like, let's just have the best events possible. And there should absolutely be a lot of hefty weight to that. But also sometimes if you want to know more about your player base, you just have to fucking do it. And so I do think that part of it is them just trying new things, and if it doesn't work, much like bright lights, right? Like you try something, and if it doesn't work, then like you just don't go back to it. And I'm not saying even that bright lights was a bad thing. I'm just saying that I think that it'll be a while before we see an only one class set because they were trying it just to see, because sometimes that's the best way to find out.
Yeah, and so some of this I think is self-inflicted as well. I get the feeling that a lot of these sorts of decisions were made off of the assumption of prior seasons, but then they make the change where experience is no longer a qualification method. And that's going to drive people to go to more RTNs because now they can't qualify off something that they've been able to rely on. So RTN attendance goes up. So when you do put things in smaller developing stores that have less seating, we're going to freeze people out. And so that's, I think, a lot of what happened when we sit there and we look at social media posts or reports from people that are like, well, there was a 16 slot RTN and they opened up signups and it filled in 7 minutes and I couldn't get in. And it's like, yep.
Yeah. And right now somewhere there's a One Piece player listening to our podcast going, these fucking guys, they don't know what it's like to not get in on your signups like 30 seconds after they open up.
Yeah, but like that's a completely different
I know it's completely different, but there's a part of me that's like, yeah, there's that One Piece / Fab player who's going, yeah, these guys, they don't know how good they fucking got it.
Yeah, no shit. But, and it's still one of those, specifically here in the Midwest, Nationals is in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so here especially, its attendance was way up. Just across the board at all the different RTNs, attendance was up. You go and you look at some of the other tournament reports that we've seen that come from other places where it's like, I top forward my 12-person RTN. I'm like, man, okay. And then today I was looking at one, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I thought it was South America, where the report was, it might have actually been Europe, but I knew it was 4. It was not in the US.
Okay, they're close to each other.
They are very much so not. I know that much.
They're both on the same planet.
However, if it's Brazil and Portugal, I think that they speak Portuguese in Brazil, or is that Argentina?
Yes.
You know what? Brazil, right? And so, but the report was got there and won my 70-person RTN. I'm like, the fuck did you just say? How
it wasn't
many?
Quite 70, but when my buddy Matt, aka Cosmic, the guy who really got me to take the plunge into Flesh and Blood, so shout out to Matt. When he won his RTN with Chain so many moons ago, we had like 50 or 60. So it's not unheard of for me,
sure,
but it's still like pretty impressive anytime I hear those kind of numbers. I'm used to, now again, maybe it's just because of like my regionality, right? But I'm used to most RTNs being like 30s and 40s, which is
sure.
I think still pretty good, but
yeah. I think the smallest one I played in this season was 24. And then the largest one I played in was 50 something. So yeah, like there was definitely some varying attendance on. A lot of it is regionality. Again, we talked about that a little bit where it was, the Kansas City Double Dip weekend was 48 at one event and I think 52 at the other. So, 2 big events. And then even going to Jefferson City, Missouri was like, I want to say it was 28 or 28 people. And that was splitting on the same weekend, I believe, as the St. Louis RTN. So they're close enough that they're going to divide each other. And then for Des Moines, Minneapolis, and Lincoln, Nebraska were all happening on the same day, which that's another thing that I'm going to kind of go into. But they are all on the same day. So you have, a lot of times Des Moines events will pull the Lincoln player base. The Lincoln player base, or the Lincoln events will a lot of times pull Des Moines, and Minneapolis will a lot of times pull Des Moines and Lincoln. Instead, they're just divided on that one day. And here's, the thing I want to get into about this is you can look in Gem to see if other stores that are around you have scheduled an event, and then not schedule your event the same day. I know it's novel, but maybe.
I don't know if they have that ability though, do they? I thought
absolutely.
that
you just go into the events locator and look around you on. And
no, I mean, like, I didn't know that they had the leeway for scheduling when it came to ProQuests and Road to Nats. I thought
you can schedule whatever date within the window you want.
Interesting.
Yep. And now, like with Minneapolis, I understand because they had so many RTNs this season that finding room was almost impossible on their end. But like some of the other things, it's just like, come on. Like,
well, I mean, this is one of those things where it depends on whether you are, you know, trying to run a business or trying to run a club. Because the reality is, I can tell you, I've been to stores where I could totally see the store owner going like, oh yeah, we definitely want a day that's just ours. It's good for business. Let's get as many people to show up. We'll say, hey, you know, we're going to do this. And then we have others, and I'm not going to say like names or anything, but like there are definitely stores I've been to where they were like, hey, we're going to wait and schedule ours as the same day as the other big store so that our locals can play here and have a better shot at qualifying. Because
and then get into fights,
everyone to be at the bigger one.
And get into drunken brawls in the parking lot.
I'm just saying that is two sides of a coin, right? Like, it happens. If anything, I would say, you know, if you're a store and you do want to, for whatever reason, schedule on the same day as another semi-local thing, at least pick a different format. Like the thing that drives me nuts is when you've got 2 or 3 in the same day and then they're all CC, or you have like an all CC weekend and it's like.
So that's another interesting thing, though, is while you can pick the day, you don't get to pick the format. They tell you that. So that's a little out of your control.
So then when you're picking your day.
Sure, whatever. And there was this, I guess it just felt like there were about half as many draft events as there were CC. I mean, that's what it felt like whenever I looked in Gem. But that, again, my surrounding area was a lot of front-loaded events on the same days as other events. So maybe there were as many draft, but it just didn't feel like it. I guess that's where I came from on this. But yeah, that's a long way of saying that I qualified for the calling, which was not what I was wanting to do. But and all those times where I dropped from events at callings and took 4 losses for my trouble because Gem was drunk and didn't drop me and tanked my elo, I now feel that. So great. Moving on, there was Flesh and Blood that was played this weekend in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. They say Philadelphia, but we all know it's the Valley Forge Casino. It always is. And we had ourselves a CC Battle Hardened and a CC ProQuest Plus. I think that they switched branding yet? I don't fucking care, actually. And as everyone expected, and everyone knew it happened, it was Uzuri beating Kano in the finals, just as everybody had it drawn up on their tier lists, all week long. And by everybody, I mean Charmer. You're the only person that has Uzuri at the top of their tier list.
I mean, I was doing actual analysis. I wouldn't, but I do.
Well, sure.
I do think that I still think she's the most fun to play. And I do also think that she's probably better than people are giving her credit for. But again, I think that she still, like, we're several sets away, but I honestly truly believe that she still suffers from not having a true refined list, because she's so versatile that you can play her different ways. And so when there's not like consensus, the only people who like take the dive are the ones who just want to play the hero, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
Like there are the people who are like, hey, I think this is a good deck, so I'm going to pick it up to play it this season. And with Uzuri, like, even if you think it's a good deck, you start doing the research and you're like, all right, well, I have 5 different lists from like, top 8s or whatever, and they're all different lists. It's like, and not even just like, okay, well, this one ran this one attack instead of other. I mean, like, you can go from lists that have like 6 blues to have like 20 blues. Like, it's that wide of a spectrum with her, depending on how you want to pilot it. So I do think that that impacts her popularity a bit.
So we did have, I mean, it was a lot of heavy hitters. Fuck me. In the top 8 of this one, with Guy Cohen, Mara Ferris, and Brody Spurlock, of all people, on Dromai. Josh Borger on Kano was the runner-up. Caleb Engin, one of the two, was the winner on Uzuri. Colin Swisher was also on Uzuri. Ryan Thomas on Rhinar. And Heik Voskerchan was on Kasai, so the real hero of the event. A little surprising because obviously the Kano had to go through a Dromai, and most of the time Dromais can navigate the Kano matchup and win, but sometimes the Kano's just blasting and you lose. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes Kano be blasting. It's funny you say that because Majin Bei's tweet is literally on my screen right now. Blasting. From 3 hours ago. Just blasting.
Yep. He was just blasting. We'll get to him in a second. To me, the question I put on here was just like, is it weird that we didn't see any KO or dash?
I don't think so. I don't think it's weird because despite them getting early results doesn't mean, like, it's small sample size, right? Doesn't mean that that's going to be the new boogeyman. If anything, it's probably a sign that their resting place within the meta is more in line with everything else. Early wins, in my mind, can sometimes just be like due to unfamiliarity, not necessarily the person piloting it. They probably have the reps. It's that nobody else has the reps playing against it. Because that's part of the testing thing. Like, you want to do your testing with a new deck or whatever, but a lot of times people do it in secret, or, I always laugh whenever people ask me, but I've given people deck lists in the past and they're like, are you okay if I play this on Talishar? And while I do understand that sentiment, the answer to me is like, if I ever give you a deck, like, play it wherever the fuck you want.
I don't give a shit.
But with that in mind, right, when you're talking about when the season first opened up and people were trying, KO or whatever, it does catch people by surprise when you're defending against it, because you don't know, how to block or what to expect or what the power turns are or whatever.
What matters, what doesn't.
Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily a surprise. No more than I would say, like, if, KO turns around and wins an event here in the near future, like KO could win Pro Tour LA, and I'd be like, not surprised. Sure. But also, he could not make the top 8, and I would say also not surprised. The meta is just incredibly diverse right now, and specialists are thriving, and also people who get a little bit of help. And by that, I mean luck. And that's not to take anything away from the players, but, if you pick a Kano and you run into people who didn't plan for arcane damage, for example, you can do well. Conversely, if you pick a hero and you don't take any AB and you don't run into any of the Kanos in the room, sometimes that pays off, right? So, like, taking the risk is how you get the reward. And we're going to see a bit of that over the next few weeks, I think, as well.
Yep. It is weird just how much specialization in players is starting to bubble up and matter just way more in very short order. So now it's like, I spent the first X number of years playing this game just wanting the ability to play anything. And now I'm going, so I think it's a dumb idea to do anything except for play the same deck basically every event. The the fuck do I need the rest of these cards for? And I know it's facetious and stupid. The rest of the cards are there in case, for when I want to play something else, right? But
I mean, you never know when a new hero will be released that you just absolutely adore, right? Like,
but more than Kasai, probably not. But she'll eventually Living Legend out. But yeah, I guess like I look at these things, and obviously like the thing that jumps out, and again, the discourse, here we go again, is the deck that rewards the specialist the most appears or has been or has felt like it's been Kano for the longest time. The good Kano players can take Kano and always do well. Okay. It's a complicated deck to know the lines and know when you can do what you need to do, or wait for your openings and things like that. And recognizing those is super important. And yes, it is a complicated deck. So we're going to touch on this briefly. But in the finals, there was an issue where the Kano player forgot to spend a resource. So they just thought they still had one floating when they didn't. And they were able to take that took a lot of time to rewind to a game state that made it so that it was as correct as it was going to be. And so just the dog piles on Twitter were astronomically tall yet again. Stupid deck, stupid this, stupid that. I can't believe the player, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it's got done playing 7 rounds or 8 rounds of Swiss. And then they're in the finals of this battle hardened. And you're going to be up their ass about this thing right here. I mean, it was caught. It was corrected.
Hey, listen, I have never made a mistake in the finals of a battle hardened. So I expect other people.
Because you've never been in the finals of a battle hardened.
I've never made a mistake in the finals of a battle hardened. You know what? I hold everyone to the same standard. Okay.
Yeah. And so, but it was fixable, and it did not end up impacting the outcome of that game. The Uzuri player won. So done and done. Could that have been an issue had it not gotten caught? Absolutely. But the point is, it was caught, it was fixed, and I don't understand why there's so much, why people are wanting to hold on to the fucking notion of, well, this is just proof that Kato is toxic. It's like, come on.
I mean, that's not why Kano is toxic.
No, it isn't why Kano is toxic.
Kano is toxic because he listens to Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate.
Yeah, that would do it. That is toxic.
Yeah.
Yep. He's also really good friends with the Bosas, most likely. If anybody
not to be confused with the Bofas.
Bofa D's?
Yeah, the Greek hero.
Everybody
knows about, Heracles, but most people don't know about Bofa
D's. Yeah, that's true. Bofum. We also had the ProQuest Plus / PTI event. I don't fucking know what it's actually supposed to be called yet.
We really do need a name for events that are just PTI events.
They're supposed to be called ProQuest Plus going forward. I just don't know when the rebrand is happening.
Listen, that's a dumb name. I'm sorry. I am normally the biggest LSS stan there is, but it shouldn't sound like a shitty subscription, right? What are we gonna do? I don't know what came out new this week on the ProQuest.
You want a ProQuest Plus and chill?
It sounds like something in the fucking Mark Zuckerberg metaverse. Oh, you got your Oculus Quest Plus, whatever. No, I mean, sorry, ProQuest Plus. Give it something cool. I don't care what, but ProQuest Plus is not cool enough for me. It deserves a better name. This is why I'm saying it. It's not It's not that I'm trying to be like a dick about this. It's that the game and the events are so cool that they deserve better.
Well said.
Than ProQuest
than ProQuest Plus? Like, are you saying that you wouldn't pay $9.95 a month for ProQuest Plus?
I wouldn't borrow your login information to watch a ProQuest Plus.
That's fair. I am. All right. In this case, the ProQuest Plus, we had Lucas Molho and Natalie Hunt on Dromai, Corey Frescati Robinson on Reinar, Majin Bey and Nate Snyder, who were the finalists of this ProQuest Plus on Kano, Connor Bryant on Azalea, Noah Begelman on KO, and Matt Rogers, of all people, on Kasai. And yes, won by Majin in the KO mirror in the finals. I did go and watch the finals because it's up as a VOD on Savage Feats. Shout out to Savage Feats.
Oh, you mean it's not a YouTube short?
No, it actually was. It's a very. It is not. It's actually a very compelling game.
No, here's the thing though. I actually know. I haven't seen it yet, but I know that's going to be the case because obviously I love Caleb. He's a fantastic person. If you've never met Majin in person, wonderful. But I have talked to him at several events where he's played Kano, and we joke about how like Kano games are fast unless it's the Kano mirror. Like the Kano mirror is the one time where you're like, all right, strap in, and it's going to be like much more grindy. Because you kind of have to like eke your incremental advantage, and you kind of also expect both people to really be playing for a second cycle. Like there's some interesting nuances to it, and it's not the like, oops, I win scenario.
Right. Like I was one of the turns was Caleb's got 3 E-Pots and swings in with a nourishing. So drawing up to 5 cards, and he hits a hand of like 4 reds and a yellow. And he's just looking at it going, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Well, all right, I guess. And so he just didn't do anything with his 5-card hand. And then it goes back the other direction. Like 2 turns later, Nate Snyder has 2 E-Pots in play and attacks with a nourishing, gets the on hit, draws up and sees fuck all for the ability to activate Kato. He's just like looking at it going, all right. And it was a pretty, like I said, it was a very interesting matchup. It was one where the end of it came down to Nate, I think, did exactly what he needed to do in forcing Majin to blow all of his E-Pots on defense. And then Majin drew his hand and saw Eye of Ophidia as one of the blues, and Eye of Ophidia with Nate being empty-handed, and Eye of Ophidia saw Wildfire, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like, that'll do.
But again, you talk about like the grindy nature of that, right? You just said what I like have talked to him about is E-Pots on defense. Because sometimes that's the right move, because you get your opponent they go into you, and if you can use your E-Pots but you still have a hand and then they don't, then you have free reign. It's I haven't seen it yet, but I'm not surprised to hear that it was like a legitimate back and forth real match, because he says that that's basically the only time that they feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you're just blasting. Just blasting. And it also was interesting because when they did the coverage, there was no casters, so they did it just with hot mics, and the banter on both ends was actually super high quality, because Caleb's fucking hilarious. And Nate's a bit of a misanthrope, but he can talk shit with the best of them. So it was really interesting or entertaining to listen to the hot mic as well. So definitely worth going back and watching if you can stomach watching a Kano mirror. I find them entertaining and interesting. It's also just a very forceful reminder to me that I shouldn't play Kano, because I was watching that shit and going, I don't know. Is this the right time to try something? I don't fucking know. Maybe. And usually it was just like, do a thing. Kano, do a thing. Waning Moon for 2. Mm-hmm. I'm like, huh. Okay. Cool. There's nothing else you could have done with any of that?
Nope.
No. All right.
No, because so much of it is Like the problem is that in that matchup, your floor is always just like the waning moon bullshit or whatever. And then your ceiling you need to make sure your ceiling is bigger than your opponent's, right? Like that's how you win that. It reminds me of like Oldham mirrors, to be honest, where most of the time your turns are looking pretty lackluster and identical, and it's a weapon swing and whatever until one of you does something worthwhile, and then rinse and repeat. It's just with pew pew,
right? And yeah, that's a lot of it. Like I said, I learned a lot just by watching it. Not enough to do anything with it, but at least I learned a lot. So that was always nice. Any closing thoughts before we move on from the casino in Valley Forge?
No, I think we should talk to our past selves. We tell them that we should probably be kinder. Of course, I say that in an episode where I'm telling LSS that their ProQuest Plus name is dumb, but clearly they do listen, or we just have really good ideas that nobody listens to because, gamma updates.
Here we go again. So, okay. LSS was at Gamma. If you're not familiar with Gamma, it is an industry gaming convention that is held in Louisville, Kentucky, I believe, or Cincinnati. It's one of the two. It's either Cincinnati or Louisville. Yeah, either way. And LSS was there. Great. And they had a significant swath of announcements to make. One of their announcements was that Flesh and Blood will have significant convention presence this year, including a large presence at Gen Con.
Weird. Man, I wish I knew what episode number it was, but I bet I could go back by date and find, the episode we recorded when we got back from Gen Con, and I repeatedly said how cool it would have been to just go and see Flesh and Blood there.
Uh-huh. Or even like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago when we were talking about, we are going to this convention or whatever. And it was just like, yeah, I mean, I don't understand why LSS doesn't really just do the convention circuit. I think that'd be really good for the game, blah, 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 blah. And what do you know? Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
I'm happy about it. That's a good thing.
I wonder if this, entirely just wild speculation, but I wonder if this is actually their first stepping stone to having a North American office of some kind.
I don't think so.
Well, hear me out. When I think of the kind of logistics that goes into the convention circuit and getting all of the the physical stuff to and fro, you got to put it somewhere. And at some point, I guess I would put it like this. This might be the litmus test, but it would not surprise me if they do the circuit and if things go well, then they just have a small base of operations. I'm not talking you're not going to have game devs or whatever. I just mean they'll have a thing here for running, some baseline operations out of.
Well, if LSS is listening, because clearly they are, I do have convention experience and would love to work for you. So if you are going to set up a satellite office, just give me a call.
We've done those together. I also have convention experience. Decades worth.
A lot actually.
I have a lot.
So they will have a large presence at Gen Con, which is fantastic. They're also going to be at the PAX series. They're going to be at Essen and Spiel. So a lot of the bigger board gaming conventions. I didn't see Origins on the list, but that doesn't surprise me a whole lot. But if they decided to do Origins, it's not like Gen Con where it actually takes some politicking and a little bit of extra work to get into it. Origins is pretty easy. But so there'll be 70 events that they're going to be attending over the next 12-month cycle, which is a lot. When you're talking about going to basically 6 cons a month, give or take, that's impressive. So you do have to have a team that's doing that shit.
You're going to have a couple because you're going to have
Well, I
the
mean, you
American
need a
team.
structure, right? Like you actually
yeah.
have to have a dedicated structure for conventions at that point in time, within your marketing department or whatever, whatever AU you want to put it under. Fucking AUs. Okay, great. Whatever you want it to be categorized as. So that's, bold. And
I love that they're going to the board game stuff because,
yes.
again, I think that doing it one cycle before, and who knows, maybe it will come later this year, but ideally I would think you would want to get your name into the board game players' like consciousness one cycle before you release the PvE stuff, so that when they do come around, they're like, oh yeah, I remember. Like,
they did give us,
yeah,
they did give us the George R.R. Martin response with PvE, and they said it was coming.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I think that ultimately this is a very important step for the game and growth, especially if at some of these larger events. Like if there's a calling at Gen Con, that's a lot. And interesting.
Yeah. I go back and forth on that. I know we're a Flesh and Blood podcast, but I will say, after I've talked to the folks I spoke with at Fantasy Flight Games and their plans for Star Wars Unlimited events, in the past, FFG has always done big events at conventions like a Gen Con or whatever, and they are not going to do that. Like, very specifically, they might have some events, but they will be smaller things. They are very specifically and purposefully trying to not run large events at things like Gen Con, because the feedback that they got from players who played their other games was that they felt like they were punished for doing well. Because it's like,
because they didn't get to enjoy the convention.
Yeah, it's like if I go and I play all day on one day and I make day two and I play half of that or whatever, it's like, okay, well now, my Gen Con's over. Right? Like I never got to actually like enjoy the rest of it. Now, granted, Gen Con's more than 2 days, but for a lot of people, it's still very hard to cram in because it's such a huge convention, right?
Yeah.
What you want to do and all of that. And then, yeah, I don't know. So I'm obviously, I think it would be great for the game for them to, do something so that people see people playing the game, so they stop thinking, hey, this is just a money grab scam or whatever. I don't know how people still think that now.
I have no idea.
I do hear it muttered from time to time. So like that helps in that regard, but also I've mulled that over for the few months or whatever. Well, it's actually a lot longer than a few months, because it was last Gen Con when I had that conversation, but I've mulled it over since then. And I think I'm coming around to that same thought where it's like, yeah, like if I go to a Gen Con, especially now that like I've been there with Stark, right? If I go to a Gen Con, I want to go do the stuff,
because the stuff is fun.
Yeah.
And honestly, like we talked about that, but it wouldn't be, so a calling, no. But if you did a specialty event of some sort,
ProQuest Plus.
Well, no, like a Ultimate Pit Fight Gen Con championship.
Yeah.
That had a gold foil champions card that's only available at Gen Con.
If I don't think it would be by this year, because I think we would have heard more about it by now. But if we're talking future years when PvE is released, doing, however it is, right? Like the Flesh and Blood dungeon run event, and
sure, True Dungeon cross with Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I was thinking. That sort of thing I think would be a huge hit.
Yeah, and also True Dungeon is just the fucking best. Also announced at Gamma, so there's going to be 18 callings this year, along with 50 battle hardens. So that is good to know. We do know a pretty good swath of them as of right now.
Yeah,
but that just means that the back half of the year is going to be loaded with callings, basically every month, and some doubled up. So great, good to hear. Then the big thing that they went in with outside of the convention presence was we'll be getting classic constructed pre-con decks that are supposed to be like armory level competitive. Now, they said that this is the single most requested item from people to purchase, which, okay, that makes sense. They are saying they'll be tightly allocated, which I have questions. Like, what does that mean? They will have one hero per release. So when they release CC precons, they're going to be releasing them as, okay, this hero, right? It's not we're releasing 4 precon decks right now. It's one at a time. And then the ambitious part here is that the MSRP is $40. So as a jumping off point to Classic Constructed, $40 is like, if the cards are the kind of things that you need to play the game, 40 is super reasonable. So there's been a lot of speculation, as you can imagine. We do know that they are trying to do a new product release 11 months of the year. So that's every month for all the months of a year, except for one, probably December. And I don't know how I feel about that.
I believe that my feelings are on a spectrum, and that spectrum aligns with what I believe they mean versus what I fear they mean. So what I believe they mean, right? When I give them the benefit of the doubt, when they say a new product release, I am choosing to believe that it's like them metering out these CC decks because they are doing one at a time in between the set releases and in between, like, maybe history pack, like not counting that as
or a
right, because we know
deck.
that they have the set, but like if they do a history pack, a dual, like a revisit of like the Renthia Reinar thing once a year, but instead it's different heroes or something. It could be very easy for them to do a new product release and not have it be the MTG cycle. And so that's why I say there's what I am choosing to believe right now they mean versus what they could mean, which would be me just tuning out because it's just all spoiler season all the time MTG stuff. But I just don't feel like that's what's
probably
not.
And I really I think that this is a couple of very good things. One being, it's a good avenue to revisit things. So an example is elemental heroes, right? You don't want to do an elemental set because the last time didn't go well. The last time had a hard time balancing it, but you can do we need a lightning hero. And so let's do a lightning hero precon of one of the classes that's going to be in an upcoming set or something. Or not. Like, let's say let's do a lightning warrior, a lightning Dorinthia, like just as a wild thing. So it gives you the opportunity to reprint Glistening Steelblade without putting it into a constructed set. So it's not $1 billion for this one card, or Ironsong Pride. And that way you can actually have a way to impact those markets and make cards more readily available, because they just aren't right now.
Right.
And I feel like that's not a bad solution. Same thing, like you print a Guardian with Civic Wayfinders or Civic Steps. Civic Wayfinder is a magic card. But like with Civic Steps, right?
Or you could just print real boots.
Civic Steps are
if you're
real
just
boots.
Listening and you're not seeing Logan's voice, or seeing his response, or you're just listening for his voice, he's as pained as I hoped he would be.
They are real boots. They block 3. A lot of times they also make a quicken token that doesn't fucking matter.
And a lot of times it does matter. And a lot of times they donate a quicken token so that you can hit them with down but not out because they have more tokens than you.
Yep. And especially if you use that last point of block for it, where it destroys the equipment too. Yep. So currently, I believe that your view that Civic Steps is a PSYOP is also a PSYOP.
I've publicly been on record as saying that my hate of them is a psyop so that we get better boots.
But you have
here's the problem. And this is what I said the last time, so I'm going to say it again. We had nothing for so long that we got ho-hum boots and everyone's like, oh, we got real boots. No, we got hand-me-downs. Give me real boots. Warriors have like 500 sets of bracers that are all outstanding.
We have two.
Okay, that's still 2 bracers for the 0 feet that we have.
You should really be you should be bitching about our boots and chest pieces more than the bracers.
Sure, you got a million of those too. My point is, we had nothing for so long. We finally got something that was serviceable beyond an iron rot, and we were like, oh, we have real boots. No, you don't say real boots. You have you have, it's like when you have like shitty shoes and then you buy your new set for the gym, and so now technically you have 2 sets of gym shoes. It's still gym shoes. It's not real shoes. All right, I need bling shoes. Like this is the biggest selling point for why Guardians need real boots. Okay, imagine Victor Goldmane getting anywhere near those
Trump
Civic.
45. He needs Trump 45 sneakers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Those are commoners. Those are public servant shoes. You think he wears public servant shoes? No. So
I understand. I understand that Warriors have Jordan 1s and Kobe's for their feet. Like, I get it. And that Guardians have Jormans from Kmart, which is Kmart doesn't even exist anymore. But just because they're worse than what Warrior has doesn't make them bad. Warrior has the best equipment in the game.
Okay, but let's go through the classes then, because they're worse than everybody else's.
No.
Except for like Merchant or something, if you want to like really be technical, but like Illusionists have better boots.
Well, they have footsteps.
Ninjas have better boots.
Tide Flipper and Breeze Riders, like, I guess.
And they have the ability to actually play snaps.
But
Assassins have Black Texan snaps, right?
Sure. But Draconic has snaps. Wizards have Storm Striders.
I was gonna say Wizards have Storm Striders. Like everybody.
Warriors have Refraction Bolters and Valiant Dynamo.
Yeah, like everyone in Wraith has pumped up kicks, and
Brutes Guardians are gonna. I'm kind of getting convinced over here. Ugh.
Yeah, Guardians are trying to reenact Runeblades have kicks. If you catch my drift,
right? No, I get it. Runeblades have Spellbound Creepers and Snapdragons when they want them. Rangers have they have like Perch Grapplers, but they can also play Snapdragons.
And honestly, Perch isn't even that bad.
It's not. It's fine.
Perch is still better than Civvies.
Is it?
Yeah. You know why? Because it doesn't give somebody a Quicken token.
But it blocks for 1 less.
Blocks for 1 less, but also in a really big pinch, you could activate it theoretically. You're not doing shit with your Civvies. Like, I joke about down but not out, but nobody's actually playing that in their Guardian.
That's not exactly true.
Okay, nobody should be playing that in their Guardian.
If you want to take that tack, that makes more sense to me. Let me think here. What does Mechanologist has the thing that gives action points? Or no, that's Refraction Bolters. They have Achilles Accelerator. Yeah,
they have Accelerator that also has AB, right? Like just naturally on it, like it's a useful item, and they get free AB. And or they're running like Teklo, like choose your own adventure boots.
Sure. Yeah, Guardian kind of is fucked, I guess.
Yeah, you have to go to like literally like Shiana and Merchants and shit if you want
worse footwear.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
that's my point. My point is that we had literally nothing. And then we get like a crumb and everyone's like, "Oh, thank you." And it's like, "No. Don't."
But you also had Starvo.
Had.
Well, there's a reason it's had.
Sure.
So stop bitching. That's all. Wear your treads and be happy with it.
No.
Okay. Good talk. It does say here that the ancillary products will be released in between this booster sets, so we know that we'll go booster set, and then the months in between will be some form or fashion of ancillary product. And then we do get 3 core sets for draft and sealed. So we will get 2 more.
Yeah.
We depart the Mistveil, and then we'll get another one this year as well.
So like, and again, I don't know when they're going to start this like 11 months out of the year rotation thing, but just thinking out loud, we could very easily end up at a point where your yearly cycle is you've got your 3 sets, right? So that's 3 months out of the year, right? History pack and another multiplayer thing like Round the Table once a year. That's 2
5
more out of the year. You could do a new CC deck once a quarter. That's 9.
4 more. That's 9.
All right. So then you're like, what? Like they introduce PvE and then do like one other thing. Like it's not going to take much to hit to 11. So.
We know they count things like sleeves and stuff like that as product releases.
Oh, well, if they count those, then I'm extra like not worried about this. But I was thinking about like even if they were releasing actual cards 11 times, like it's entirely reasonable that that's still not as bad as it actually sounds.
Sure. Again, it's the recovering Magic player in me that hears bigger numbers and wants to go hide.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, there's that. Also, we'll be getting Part the Mistveil. We got the release date, which I believe was May 31st. And we'll actually be getting the first Part the Mistveil preview at Pro Tour LA. So we'll be able to see a lot more about it. That'd be really cool.
Did you get our GoFundMe up and running yet?
No, that's for Tokyo. That's not for LA.
Right.
And no, I haven't. I thought you were doing that.
I will get on that.
Yeah, you're the more talented one of us. I'm not wrong. Don't act like I am.
I am talented the way that Chilean advertisers are talented by splicing in beer commercials to Star Wars in the early 2000s.
Are you talking about? I love me some Cerveza Cristal. I'll be in Mexico soon. Maybe I'll have it there. I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, it's Chilean, but things bubble up. Anything else about the Gamma update while we're on it?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I don't want to like beat it to death, but overall I was really happy with the news that did come out. It for the most part seems like all positives. As long as the new product out every 11 months of the year or whatever is not flooding us, and I fully truly do not expect it to be. Everything else seemed like really big positives and a lot of stuff that we've already been talking about. So,
yep. Repeatedly, actually, we talk about it all the fucking time. Moving on, for
like hundreds of weeks.
yeah, dozens at the very least. It's time to shill for the realm. I love shilling for the realm. It's great. I'm a big fan of shilling.
5.
Yeah, FAPOD5. But yes, we have our first 5K brawl of the year of the 2024 season. It is Saturday, July 20th in Princeton, New Jersey. And you get your 5K Classic Instructed Brawl on Saturday the 20th. You have a $60 early bird entry through April 15th. Then the price bumps up to $70. So get in there and get registered for save yourself $10 that you can spend on, I don't fucking know. It's New Jersey. And top 8 gets the invite to the 50K, and the winner getting a VIP invite, which is a different type of thing. If you are interested in what a VIP invite is, you can read the information on realmgamingnetwork.com, or you can listen to the entire fucking episode we did about it. There's that too.
That's pretty ableist of you to assume that they can read.
I also gave them the ability to listen. Is that ableist?
Yeah.
Actually, that is ableist.
Yeah.
Fuck. Wait a second. Us having this show is technically ableist.
Yeah, but I'm a fucking asshole, so.
I mean, that's why we get along. And because the realm loves us all, through the month of March, you can use the code FAPOD5, and you get 5% off your orders through the month of March. So if you're on the realmgamingnetwork.com, links are all in the show notes, by the way, for getting to the ticket page for Brawl entry and Realm's website, all that fun stuff, along with our merch link and everything else is actually just in the show notes. If you ever have a question about where to fucking get somewhere for the shit that we do, it's all in the fucking show notes, which are things that are under the description of the show. Just do that. Yeah. As far as I know, like, I think that we're going to be there. Actually, I don't know. I'll talk to somebody, but yes, you should go. It's actually a really good jumping off point too, because if you're going to Amsterdam, it is real simple to fly from the Eastern Seaboard over to Europe. Just throwing that out there. So if you're on the West Coast or in the Midwest, you're probably going to have to make that hop anyway, or something very similar. So just go to this event and then head over. It'll work out great. Yeah, we're an hour in. You want to do some listener questions?
Yeah, we should do that. Listen, I just want to apologize. Like, I know my vibes are off this week, so I've been a little more aggressive than usual, and so I'm sorry. I'll be better next week.
No, you see, people like ranty charmer though.
Yeah, I know, but that's usually for like after dark. Anyway.
Or kitchen tables at Airbnbs.
Well, yeah, that's a different experience.
That usually fucks with people because, like, what the shit? I'm like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, when I turn off the recording, this is the charmer I get.
Yeah,
and it's great. I'm a big fan. I love it.
Yeah. Anyway.
So
also, hey, Mr. Violin Man, if you're listening, I need to get in touch with you.
Oh, that guy, the backwards one. Yeah, we were supposed to like talk with him a few weeks ago. And
like so much stuff has like slipped my mind recently, and I was having a conversation with some other good friends of mine about like orders that they had made, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's a thing that I should have done or could have done, and I just
didn't.
Yeah, I've been out of space and time, but I've come back as Charmer the White.
Did you see my Vigor token?
Vigorously. No, I didn't.
It's on Ejor posted it on Twitter.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, you should look at my Vigor token. It's really good. It is beautiful. He does such great work.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, no, that's actually really fantastic.
Yeah, it's just Kasai wearing the grains of Bloodspill, and it's a Vigor token.
His who wore it better too.
Well, right, because he put grains on Rhinar. But they're on artist proof grains of Bloodspills. So that's a cool touch. Yeah, I thought that was good. I took in my plan is like whenever there's a grains trigger that I want to decide on, just slap the grains side, down on the combat chain while I decide, and if I pay for it, just flip it over. Think it would look great, but knocked it out of the park as per usual. This always does fantastic work. If anybody wants cool shit like that, you should just DM Ejor and commission something. Because one, his rates are super reasonable, and two, it looks fucking awesome.
Yeah,
gonna put that out there.
When he puts Kasai on a centaur.
Man, that was also beautiful. And then you got referenced in the posts underneath about the dream.
Yeah, well, someday. Our first listener question is from Gooflabrain. Gooflabrain says, long-time listener, second-time caller. With the meta being currently super wide, do y'all think it will remain wide for a while? And will this result in a large number of heroes LLing around the same time in a year or so? I know a lot of people are both loving and hating the wide meta, but I'm more worried about what a wide meta means in a year in terms of a whole roster being gone. That's a good question. It's a good question, but I don't think that it's one that we necessarily have to worry about because if we're talking about like a year out, we're going to have a couple of more sets to pad us. Like now that we know that it's 3.
And they've also committed to 15 new heroes.
Yeah. I was going to say, 3 draftable sets, 15 new heroes. That's a lot of padding. And I think that, one, if your goal is to establish a wide meta, you kind of already have to go through this thought experiment, right? So like what happens if you have a bunch hitting at the exact same time?
You sell more product. That's great.
Yeah. The answer is you sell more product, which is also nice. But I feel like there's a number of things that also help with that aren't talked about very often, but are worth mentioning here, which is that there are certain events that give large numbers of points. And so if you've got a bunch of people slowly rising to the top, eventually what happens is you'll have situations where one wins the event and then you have one gone. And so you kind of have this, it's not like a 5 are gone all at the same time. It's more like a staircase event.
It's not like skirmish season that eliminates entire blitz metas in one shot.
And it's funny, I was just about to say, even when we had that with the blitz season, I felt like it was still fine.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah. No big deal.
Like I would almost say that I think that like a healthy goal would be to have 5 or 6 heroes all year.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly healthy. I think that they're going to do a lot to focus on getting some of the heroes that have been around for a long time, the help they need to kind of bubble up in tiers so that they can, churn the roster a bit. And I think that that's totally reasonable. So I'm not worried about that. And I'm not worried about wide open metas. Again, I think it's very interesting that they have either advertently or inadvertently pushed specialization as a thing. So now, like, I'm not going to play anything other than Kasai because I need to specialize in something. Like, if I want to remain competitive, I can't just pick up whatever's good and expect to beat somebody that, is playing a deck that may not be as good into what I'm playing, but they have a billion reps on it. Like, because of how open the meta is, I'm a dog in that matchup regardless. So I should just be the person with the billion reps. Like, that makes more sense. And, you look at something like, I'm going to use Kasai as an example because it's what I play. But with Kasai, I feel like the only unwinnable matchup I have is Kano. And that's because arcane damage isn't real and can't hurt me. Except for when it does. But that's it. And so if I walk into an event knowing that whatever I get paired into, I have a reasonable matchup in my mind, and I have this one over here where it's like, hope I dodge that one. Prism, take care of that one for me. And then come find me later because we'll talk. But if that's the case, then I'm accepting that as what I can, as what it's going to be. And I can just master the other matchups and say, hope I dodge Kano. And that's it. I mean, Dromai is not a great matchup either. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, everything else is winnable except for that. So specializing in this one deck that is, decent enough into the entire field makes a ton of sense. And I think that is most heroes right now. Most heroes have a kryptonite matchup that they just aren't going to win. Mm-hmm. And then everything else is reasonable. And I think that is a totally fine spot for a metagame to be in. This personal opinion. Do you have any of those opinions, that is?
Gods, no.
What?
No.
Come on, spit it out, Junior.
Bitcoin was created by the CIA to launder money.
Okay.
Anyway, HammerBro82 says, thought about Viserai. It's strange that a hero who is bottom of the meta and not gaining any ground has a banned card because it was too good. Given the power of these new heroes, should LSS unban Bloodsheath Skeletor, even if that means he rushes toward LL faster?
So 2 things. Viserai is kind of a bottom.
100%.
2, go for it.
No.
I mean, Honestly, go for it.
I'm in the hard no.
I'm okay with Skeletor going. I'm okay with. So this is really difficult. The only reason I think that it's unbanning Skeletor is complicated is not Viscerai, it's Vincet.
And other future rune blades.
Right.
The problem is that Skeletor is a problem for the class, and Viscerai going away won't change that. There's a reason that Skeletor in my mind is banned, and it's beyond power level. So this is the reason that I'm a hard no, and this is also why I think that they are kind of hoping that Kano goes. But the difference between Kano and Skeletor is Kano is like the entire hero, whereas it's not, and that's how that hero was designed. So the problem with Skeletor is that rune blades, now I'm not talking about Viscerai, I just mean rune blades, like as a mechanic, as a class, are based around being the class that cares about non-attack, attack, right? Like that's their play pattern. You want both in your deck. You want to do two things, maybe end with a weapon, but you should be benefiting from playing a non-attack and an attack in the same turn. That's their entire like
structure
persona.
Yeah.
Skeletor doesn't do anything with that play style and warps it so that you're basically trying to play that hero in a way that it is not meant to be played, because like the entire class design is again being ignored. If your entire thing is instead like, I'm going to sit on my horde of rune chants, right? I'm going to become Smaug of the rune chants and then just dump a mountain full of them on you. That might be effective, and it can even be very satisfying, but it doesn't mean that that is ultimately good for that class identity. And so like you could unban it and Viscerai could go, but then we still have Vincet and we still have potentially future ones. And if they all keep doing the same thing because of this one card that, again, is so different from everything else that the class wants to do, then you have a problem with that. Like you get rid of the problem. I'm a big fan of surgical bans and addressing problems as direct as possible. And so like in this case, Skeletor's the problem. So I'm very firmly in the hard no just because it warps what that class wants to do. So if you want to make Viscerai more competitive, if you want to make Viscerai better, then you revert like Minnowism and Belittle bans.
Oh yeah, but then Phi just becomes insane.
Fine.
I think I'm okay with that too, though.
Yeah.
But the problem you have here is the most comparable card to Skeletor that's out there is Courage of Bladehold. At best, your absolute knockdown, drag out, best possible turn that you have with a Bloodsheath Skeletor in any deck, or not with Bloodsheath Skeletor, with Courage of Bladehold in any deck, Courage is worth 2 block and 8 resources. And that is magical Christmas land. That is triple Lumina and and then a full soul and other fucking nonsense with Centauri Sabers blowing Courage of Bladehold. It's that. Now, I have seen turns of Skeletor where the card was worth, where the piece of equipment was worth 2 block and 40 plus resources.
Yep.
That's an issue. Because Skeletor scales. If it had a limit, if it had a printed limit that it can't reduce, more than this, great. And originally, like the thought process with Skeletor probably was that, oh yeah, so like something that costs 4, it reduces it to 0. Great. But then the Sonatas exist. Yeah. And so if you were unbanned Skeletor, you'd probably have to ban the Sonatas.
I firmly believe at the time it was designed and created that Bloodsheath was meant to be the way that you could actually play the 9s.
Yeah.
Right? Like make that card playable. But the problem was it made that and everything else for the rest of the turn playable.
Yeah. A Sonata for 20 cards.
Yeah. A Sonata for a ton of damage, and you get to play the 9s, and then also you get all those rune chants. But ultimately, again, like it's that storing of the rune chants that I think goes against it. And even when you have somebody like Vincent who does actually, with the rune gate mechanic, want you to store things, right? So you could make the argument theoretically and say, hey, sitting on a bunch of rune chants isn't against Runeblade's design because Vincent does it. Well, yeah, but she's meant to do it and then rinse and repeat because that's how the rune gate thing works. It's not you sit on it for the entire game. It's to incentivize you getting bursts of rune chants, like off turn for setup, on turn, rinse, repeat sort of thing, not off turn for the entire game. Oops, I win. And so Bloodsheath is like I said, it's just the problem. I think that if you're concerned about Viserai, there are other ways to address him, but I think that Bloodsheath is always just going to be a thorn.
No, that was Rosetta
in Briarside.
Yeah, that was Rosetta Thorn. But yeah, again, there are problem cards. So if your option is you either leave Skeleton banned or you unban it and ban the 3 Sonatas, which one are you taking?
Or you make an errata, and I know how much you love those. You make an errata that says that X costs can't be paid by reductions.
Sure, but no, absolutely not. I'm out.
I'm just saying, like, that's, then you could keep the Sonata stuff in, but
not worth it. A card should say when you read a card, it should do exactly what it says on the card. Full stop. Just saying, like, that's just nope.
Yeah,
and erratas are bullshit.
If X's are supposed to be 0 until otherwise, reducing the cost of 0 is still 0.
But if you say a number, then the reduction applies.
Well, that's what you changed the rules so
that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, you asked for them. You literally asked for this.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, well, mark that as another punt in my fucking record book, I guess.
Mark it foul.
Mark over the line. Mark it 0 next frame. Next one is last one I should say is from Geeks First. They say, I know it's a fab podcast, allegedly, but the new Kickstarter round of games has me thinking Grimpath or Altered. One coming in hot at $5 million. How much do you feel is speculation and flippers? I calculate that 250-ish people put in $5K each at the upper tier, meaning 1.5 million is just from them alone. So call it 3.5 million. How does this fare? It's innovative for sure, but does it have staying power? Thoughts? Owning the digital card rights, it's certainly not the TCG norm. So Altered, okay. I
was going to say, first we should probably explain what the difference between the two are.
Yes.
Because technically this starts with the thought of Grimpath or Altered. So if you're not familiar, both were Kickstarters. Grimpath is interesting, and while I understand why Geeks First would include this here, I wanted to mention this because I think we can also very quickly dismiss Grimpath, and maybe that's wrong of me for thinking this, but Grimpath, if you're not familiar, it is a card game that is also a board game. It is like a mix between it's like a mix between a card game and something like a HeroClix, if you've ever played that, or a Warhammer, right? Like there are miniatures and there's a map involved and there are cards. And so it's meant to be like a TCG that also plays like a tactical tabletop. And while I think that there is realm for any game to exist, I do not think that will become popular enough to challenge any of them, simply because of the amount of like transportation and bookkeeping and whatever that's going to require, right? Like I already hate bringing a deck and some dice for tokens and whatever, and now I have to carry like minis and a map, and I just don't see this being the sort of thing that you're having, 1,000-person callings for as a result. And I think that it'll find a home with board game enthusiasts. And so in my head, I think of Grimpath more, even though there are the cards and whatever, I think of it more as a board game. Altered, on the other hand, Has some board game elements, and if you're not familiar, also went through a Kickstarter. It's being published under the Asmodee umbrella, but through a different company. I'd have to go back through my email to find their name. It's a French company, I know that. Yep. And they've also got some partnerships because of their under the Asmodee umbrella with Gamegenic products and things that were part of their Kickstarter. HUDRED has a couple of things that really make it stand out as unique. So Geeks First rightfully says it's certainly not the TCG norm, but there's a lot of things about this game that are not part of the TCG norm. So first, it is designed around, being a game where there is a victor, but there is no direct combat, right? The goal of the game is that you control an explorer and their companion, and you're both exploring these like new wilds and realms and so forth, and you do so over the course of your turn is over the course of a day, and so it's done in day cycles. And the winner is whoever gets their explorer and their companion to meet. So there are like cards that form a track path. If you've ever played like Lord of the Rings from the Decipher, the same way that you had your track path to get to Mount Doom and destroy the ring, kind of a similar thing. And so you're basically playing through a day to try to get them to move closer to each other until there's a victor. So the fact that there's no direct combat is already a pretty big departure, but I think that it will do well as a result because not everybody just wants to be somebody like trying to kill their opponent, right? This can be more inclusive, or it can also be geared towards a younger audience. The art is also really like beautiful, but done so I think in a way. Good word. Yep, it's done so in a way that I think will again attract a different audience versus something that that has the darker or more grim nature of like a Flesh and Blood. But beyond the like no direct combat part, the other two really big departures, and Geeks First touched on one of them, is you still buy cards in packs, but when you buy them, all the cards have a QR code on them. And you scan them into your collection. And so you retain like digital ownership of the cards after you open them. And that matters because if something ever happens to your cards, or after you've opened a card, you just want more copies of a card, you can pay to have them printed and shipped to you. So like, let's say you've got your like really cool, expensive deck and it falls down a sewer drain, or gets stolen from your car or whatever, you can just have them printed and resent to you. Like the actual ownership is done through their app. Very much a departure. Very, very interesting. Very wild. They will be noting additions and things like that. So like if you get Kickstarter product, like that's their alpha product, and that will be in their thing as alpha, and you'll own alpha versions, et cetera, et cetera. But it's hard for me to gauge how well this is going to work or how popular it will be because it's just literally never been done. But that was honestly one of the things that drew me to the game, because at a minimum, I like it when companies at least try to innovate. Like if you try something new, that's one of the reasons I was drawn to Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood was like, you know what? Every game for the last 30 years has done lands or resources, and we're just like going to do the pitch thing. And I played it and I was like, this is fucking amazing because it's different. And so when I heard that HUDRED was like, all right, we're going to be like non-combative and we're going to change the way you think about your collection. And, if you want to show up at like a madman and play unsleeved, you can do that. And then you just send yourself some new cards, right? Like all of that. So the last bit, and this is one of the parts that I'm also a bit unsure of, but it's a big departure, is that the deck building in the game, there are different versions of cards, and the way you deck build is based around the rarities of them. You can only have certain numbers of certain types of rarities in your deck. And so like there's I forget the exact rarities, so I'm sure these are going to be wrong, forgive me. But like imagine that there's like a common version of your card, a rare version of your card, and then for a Flesh and Blood comparative, like a majestic version. So like Flesh and Blood has blue, yellow, red. This game has like the rarity versions and then what ones you choose to include or how it's impacted. But the reason it's also a big deal is because there are uniques in this game. And when I say uniques, they are mechanically unique. There is literally one of that card in existence. And so like if you open it, you scan that in, you own the digital rights to that unique card. You are the owner of that card. Now,
so if you ever want there to only be one, then there's only one.
There's only one. Now that being said, now again, there's a lot of people going, okay, whoa, like I did. Isn't that just like what if there's just like one busted thing ever? Having played the demo a bit and having seen how they're handling the different rarities of stuff, a mechanically unique card. One, they've like got this algorithm that they've built for all of the different versions. And so like mathematically, it's supposed to be sound. We'll have to wait and see how that goes, because we all know sometimes the math doesn't math. Sometimes it's Steiner math.
Love Steiner math.
But it is interesting because even if there is really busted stuff, the unique cards are also, it's only like 3 or 4 total that you get to put in your deck, period. Mm-hmm. It's such a small like number that I don't think that it'll be a huge deal. Like the entire point is that you can have unique stuff, but if their impact to the game as a whole isn't as great as in other card games, then it's more manageable, right? It's not like if, you know, in Magic, if only one person could ever have like the busted rare in a set versus, you know, Flesh and Blood, where if like one person on the planet had, you know, one card that was like an 0 for 5 and everyone else had an 0 for 4, like that's probably not, I mean, it's an advantage. I'm not arguing that, but it's probably not going to like suddenly make them the best player in the world, only world champion. You know what I mean? Like it's an incremental thing. So we'll have to wait and see. They're doing a lot of things different. They're trying a lot of stuff new. The game plays pretty well. I don't know if it's still up, but there was a time when you could play the demo on, I think it was Board Game Geek.
No, but it was something similar.
Something similar. There was a place where you could play the digital demo, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's different. So the question, just to circle all the way back, do I think it has staying power? I think it has the potential. I think until any game like launches and you find its roots and whatever, it's very hard to tell. And a lot of it is also going to depend on what they envision for the game, right? Like, do they envision this as a competitive game or more as a board game or a casual game? Like, their vision will also dictate how we receive it. But I do think that foundationally, it's got a lot of strengths that I would look for. I think that a lot of the investors, some of it is definitely speculative and flipping 100%. Anytime
I'll
you
get
hear
into
the words,
that.
Mechanically unique, like you want to be the one who like rips it.
Sure.
Also, they're doing something that nobody else has ever done before. So you have people that are just like interested in the novelty of it, like me, but you also have people that are like, hey, if this hits, like I want it on the ground floor and I want to have, you know, all the uniques and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I do think that a lot of that will likely have been, you know, on the speculative side, but I do legitimately think that there's going to be a number of people that were interested because the game is pretty neat. And they did a good job of doing some road shows, and it seemed to be well received to the folks that I know who either own or work at game stores where they've had them, and I've talked to them. They said, like, you know, turnout was good, seemed well received. Other card game, you know, Discord servers I'm in, people that have talked about it, you know, I know a lot of people that are backing it from the player side and not for speculative reasons. So, you know, it's going to be a mix. It'll be really hard to judge, but I think that it has the foundations to do well. Yeah.
I would say that those 250 people are almost certainly all speculators with the game. That is probably mostly product that isn't going to be opened, at least not immediately. And people will be trying to move off of it to just find the rake. That is what it is. But that's, again, 1.5 million out of 3.5 million. There's a lot of people, me included, that kickstarted this game because of the uniqueness of it, because it is something very different. And a lot of times people have their games, their game they play competitively. For me, it's Flesh and Blood, and then usually people have a secondary competitive game. Alpha Clash or Star Wars, but Alpha Clash I can't play competitively. Star Wars I can, so Star Wars it is. Then but a lot of people also just have games they own that they'll just want to bust out and let them hit the table and have a good time. This feels more like that.
This feels like I'll be honest, this could end up being a competitive game, but this feels very much like a vibes game.
Right. Yep.
And the same way that people were, and there are plenty of people who still are, excited about like sorcery. This I kind of get a similar feel, obviously wildly different game, but this I'll put it another way. Like, this is unlike sorcery or whatever. This is a game where I could see my wife playing it. Right.
Sure. And again, I the Kickstarter, I kickstarted the two of the starter decks, a booster box and some like a playmat and a deck box or something. Right.
Yeah.
Nothing major, like a couple $100. And
full disclosure, I did also Kickstarter, and I was definitely not one of the like 5K plus people. No. I did starter decks and some extra stuff or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I did that just mainly because I was like, okay, I'm not looking to make any money off of this. I'd like to be able to build some decks, do some different stuff, and then take it with me. So like if I'm at a Flesh and Blood event and we need something to, it's towards the end of the day or whatever, and everybody's kind of just chilling, something you can bust out with somebody. And again, it's a vibe game.
Mm-hmm.
You're just hanging out and playing something for fun. That's nothing like what you just did for 9 rounds, right? At the end of the day, almost all of us, at some form or fashion, well, not almost all of us, literally all of us, in some form or fashion, are gamers at heart. And we play games, the original reason we ever started playing games is because we fucking like them.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to an enjoyment thing, it's really hard, or at least for me, it's really hard to go to an event, grind 7, 8, 9 rounds of a competitive game, and then like turn around and play a different competitive game. It just, you don't want to. You want to play something
unless you're Majin Bay.
Unless you're Majin Bay. Instead, what you want to do is you want something that is going to be less stress, and something that you can just, again, hang out and have some fun with, even though it's still feeding that competitive juice. Like, it's still something where you are playing against somebody, but in reality, you're both playing against an environment for the most part. And yeah, I think that's the reason I did it, is because I want something in my bag to go, hey, you both have dropped, or it's the end of the day and we're waiting on something. Why don't we just bust out Altered for a minute and, for a little bit and play a couple of games of Altered?
Yeah.
Easy.
I will say, because, I've been thinking quite a bit about this, and the digital ownership thing really like threw me for a bit. But part of the reason that I ultimately backed it, besides just like the novelty or whatever, long term, like, let's say that this works and it's something that even gets adopted by other people or whatever. The thing that really intrigued me about this model of ownership is that it feels like a great way to be the best of both worlds for competitive and casual. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say for my kitchen table casual group, we all, between, the four of us that are playing at my kitchen table or my local shop or whatever, between the 4 of us, we all own roughly 1 complete set. We can all just print as many copies of the cards that we want and then just like loan them out and play there. No problem. Right? Yeah. Imagine if you wanted to get your friend into Flesh and Blood and you could just hand them Command and Conquers to play at the kitchen table. No, you don't even have to like proxy them up. It's like literally like, hey man, I have a bunch of these. Like, that's a pretty cool and innovative thing for the casual community. And now you might be thinking like, well, won't that like dilute the value of my card? Well, so this is where the interesting part comes, because the ownership is done digitally and you very clearly already have to have some sort of app or site to facilitate that. That also means that whatever you're using for your competitive events, should you choose to have them, when you submit your deck list, you could do it via that app and it will check you for ownership. So that's how they know if you are the person who has the card you're supposed to have and own it or not. And it's cool to me that you can enforce that only when it matters at a competitive level, but then at the casual level, they're literally like, yeah, we don't care what the fuck you do with your friends. You know what I mean? Like, print 5 Black Lotuses.
Whatever.
Have at it.
Yeah.
I think that is, again, if it's executed well enough and if it's done well enough, I think that's a great happy medium for making a game both accessible, but also still competitively viable and maintain that integrity, and also still kind of like maintains that integrity for the collectorship part as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I don't know, like, I guess to put a fine point on your question, if you're asking me Altered or Grimpath, I kickstarted one of them and not the other.
Same.
Right.
I mean, Grimpath looked cool. I own a lot of board games already like that.
Yeah, how many fucking games have I ever played or do I own that look cool?
Oh, I got shelves full.
Right. And I don't need more that look cool. I need ones that are fun. Like I do a Tuesday.
I need more that look cool too. Like,
oh, true. I do a Tuesday board game night, and I walk in the door for Tuesday board game night, and usually the guy that hosts it has a game set up already, ready to go. And I look down, and it's something I've never played before, but it is 2000s Ravensburger Euro game. And I'm just like, fuck me. All right. So there are no rules that you can read. Everything's done through pictures and flowcharts, and nothing actually fucking means anything. Fantastic. Euro game it is. Let's go. And after playing it once, like the group of the three of us that were there that night, I was like, so what do you think? Want to run it back? And then the other guy was just like, absolutely not. I never want to do this again.
Yeah.
I'm like, welcome to Euro games.
How about instead we set up Twilight Imperium and then don't actually play the game, and that's still a better experience.
Still a better experience, yeah. You really have to love that style of game in order to get the most out of it, and it's hard because your reference cards literally show a picture of a pig and an arrow that points to bacon, and you're like, well, yeah, eventually, but how does it get there?
Honestly, you're kind of describing Flux, the card game.
It's pretty close, yeah.
Except for I really like Flux. If you guys have never played Flux and you're listening,
if you've learned Flux, that's different.
Flux is fantastic. You know what? I have a number of games that I need to put in my backpack for when we're at Flesh and Blood events that I can break out that aren't Flesh and Blood that we can play. Like, I know the Flesh and Blood community would fucking love Lunch Money. If you've never played Lunch Money or Beer Money.
Beer Money, yeah.
Oh, man.
I always have Love Letter on me because it's quick, it's easy, and there's a lot of shit talking.
Yeah, well, that's why I was thinking, like, about Flux. I was like, man, I should throw, like, a Flux deck or two in my backpack because it's the easiest game in the world to teach to somebody because you literally, like, the rules are on the table at any given time, and you just do what the rules tell you until somebody wins. Like,
correct.
That sounds reductionist, but it's not. That is Flux.
Nope, that's exactly how the game plays.
It's a good time.
Yep. Let's go ahead and thank some patrons while we're here. This time it didn't fuck up on me, so it's going to feel great. Let's start with our associate producers. We have Andy, Sindra, Donnie, Jacob, Kenny, Larry, and the Salty Sea Cat. Our executive producers on up, we have Alex, Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon, by the way, Dom, Lance, Good Thrust, Matt Two Tokes, Poxonus, Trevor, Papa Mike, Philip, Rich, and Taylor. If you are interested in becoming a patron of Flesh and Pod, you can go to patreon.com/Flesh and Pod. Link is in the show notes. Like every fucking other thing that we talk about, the link's in the fucking show notes, which are the things. If you scroll down the thing, fuck it, I don't care. They're like 6 tiers. If you're listening to this, FAP After Dark probably already happened this week. I did announce it in the Patreon channel, but you know, it is what it is. If you need to contact the show for whatever reason, I'm just going to ignore the other methods. Just come in our fucking Discord. it makes life so much easier if you just come in the Discord. And I mean, like, you come in that Discord as hard as you want to. I'm okay with it. Just guns ablaze, just blasting. That link's in the show notes. But if you do actually want to send us an email, you can do it at fleshandpod@gmail.com. And if you do want to find us on Twitter, it's at fleshpod. Charmer, you want to just plug your shit?
Yeah, I probably should.
Go on.
Oh, you...
Now, yeah.
I thought you meant put the jewel in.
Well, no, that's already there. I just haven't hit the button on the remote yet.
Anyway, yeah. Charmer, Charm 3R in most places like Twitch, YouTube, whatever. I'm in the Discord. That's the best place to find me. If you like me for whatever reason and you want to listen to me talk about Star Wars Unlimited, you should listen to Ice Cave Radio. That show also has Flake and Doa on it, so it's much better than just me ranting. Social media, if it's not Charmer, it's that Charmer, because some people have dead accounts they're sitting on, and Elon is a fuckboy that won't give me my account. So yeah.
Big facts. That makes total sense. If you need to find me, just the Discord. You can go to Twitter at Logan Peterson, but just the Discord. Just do the Discord thing. You don't have to be a member of the Patreon. You can just use the link and join and come hang out and experience the shit show for yourself. It's really a good time. One of the things I think I'm going to start doing a little bit, because I know a lot of people have reached out to me in the past and I've been like, oh, if I knew you would have been insert place, I would have come and shown up to hang out. And it's like, oh, okay. So I'm going to actually have a channel in the Discord and also kind of try to do a segment of some sort of where we plan on being in a given weekend. So this weekend, nowhere. I'll be in Mexico.
I'm not laughing at you being in Mexico. I made the mistake of I opened Twitter in the browser just real quick, and I looked at my my trending thing. These are the 4 words that my current Twitter, because I know that it's personalized or whatever, but mine I don't know why, but mine has these 4 trending. First is rapist in all caps. Then the next one is Michael Keaton, then John Mulaney, and then Haiti. So I assume that Michael Keaton is a rapist and he assaulted John Mulaney in Haiti, and Twitter is alight with it. I mean, I'm sure it's probably something about the Oscars or whatever, but
yeah, that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. I'm pretty sure that all of those are completely separate topics, and please don't sue us, Michael Keaton or John Mulaney. Haiti, if you want to sue us, whatever.
Don't be a Haiti.
I'm done. I'm just, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great week with whatever the fuck that was. So talk to y'all next week. Bye.